Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, check the news, and see that a once-in-a-century heat wave is hitting your area. But here's the terrifying part. This isn't a rare event anymore. According to scientists, what used to happen once every 100 years could be happening every other year by 2030. But extreme heat is just the beginning. Today we're living through what experts are calling the most dangerous period in human history for natural disasters. And I'm not talking about some distant future. I'm talking about the next 6 years. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the most credible scientific predictions about natural disasters heading our way before 2030. We'll cover which disasters are most likely to hit, where they'll strike hardest, and what the real-world impact will look like. But first, let me give you some context that might shock you. According to recent studies, 92% of countries will experience extreme hot temperatures every other year by 2030. Texas has a 23.64% chance of experiencing a major natural disaster in the coming years. That's nearly a 1 in 4 chance. And California? They've already recorded over 100,000 wildfires in just over a decade. This isn't fear-mongering. This is science. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's coming and why we need to pay attention now. Let's start with the most immediate threat: extreme heat. Here's what's happening. The 5 biggest greenhouse gas emitters, China, the US, the European Union, India, and Russia, have essentially loaded the atmospheric dice. Without their emissions, only 46% of countries would face regular extreme heat. With their emissions, that number jumps to 92%, but it gets worse. These aren't just uncomfortable summer days we're talking about. We're looking at heat waves that will kill thousands every summer, make entire regions uninhabitable, and force mass migrations as people flee areas that become too hot for human survival. The most vulnerable? Tropical African regions, because they have low temperature variability from year to year. When the heat hits, they have nowhere to adapt. Now let's zoom in on the United States, because the data here is particularly striking. A comprehensive study analyzing wildfire, tornado, and flood data has identified the most at-risk states for natural disasters. And the results might surprise you. Texas tops the list with a 23.64% chance of experiencing a major natural disaster. Why? They've recorded 1,774 tornado incidents between 2008 and 2023, more than any other state. In 2022 alone, they had 12,571 wildfire cases. California comes in second at 18.12%. They've experienced 101,760 wildfires between 2010 and 2022, the highest number recorded by any state. That's not a typo. Over 100,000 wildfires in just over a decade. But here's what's really concerning. These aren't random events. They're part of a pattern that's accelerating. Speaking of wildfires, let's talk about what scientists are calling the coming wildfire apocalypse. Environmental scientists from Harvard predict that by 2050, wildfire seasons in the US will be 3 weeks longer and twice as smoky. The acreage burned annually has already tripled since 1999, from 2.2 million to 6.4 million acres per year. Here's the ironic part. We actually made this problem worse. Remember Smokey the Bear and all those campaigns to prevent forest fires? Well, by stopping natural fires, we allowed underbrush to build up in forests. Now when fires start, they have way more fuel to burn. we're looking at 30,000 to 50,000 wildfires annually. That's not just an environmental disaster, that's a complete transformation of how we live. But fires are just one piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about the big ones. The earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that could reshape entire regions overnight. In California, the U.S. Geological Survey has increased the probability of a magnitude 8.0 or larger earthquake hitting within the next few decades. They call it the big one. And it's not a matter of if, but when. When it hits, it will produce shock waves traveling 7,200 miles per hour, devastating major freeways and buildings. The biggest concern? Fires. All that dry brush we talked about could turn any small blaze into a raging inferno. But California's earthquake risk pales in comparison to what's brewing under Yellowstone National Park. There's a supervolcano there that could end modern civilization as we know it. If it erupted, it would blanket half the United States in ash, block out sunlight for years, and potentially cause billions to starve. The only question is when, not if. Now let's talk about our coastlines, because they're living on borrowed time. Sea levels are rising faster along the East Coast than anywhere else in the world, 3 to 4 times faster than the global average. By 2050, New York City's sea level is expected to rise 31 inches, putting 25% of the city in danger of flooding. That means 800,000 people live in what will become a flood zone. And by 2050, 97% of New York City's power plants will be in that same danger zone. Miami and New Orleans are already fighting the tide. Venice sinks lower each year. This isn't some distant future scenario. This is happening now, and it's accelerating. But here's where it gets really interesting and terrifying. Some of the biggest threats aren't the ones we're preparing for. Solar flares, for instance. In 1859, something called the Carrington event fried telegraph systems worldwide. If that happened today, it would collapse the internet, knock out power grids, ground airplanes, and shut down hospitals. Banking, commerce, and communication would disappear instantly. Scientists estimate there's a 12% chance of a major solar storm hitting Earth in the next 10 years. That might not sound like much, but when the consequences are civilization ending, 12% is terrifyingly high. Then there are asteroids. NASA monitors over 30,000 near-Earth objects. Even a kilometer-wide rock could end human civilization, releasing more energy than all nuclear weapons combined. So where does this leave us? The data is clear. We're entering the most dangerous period for natural disasters in human history. By 2030, we'll be dealing with regular extreme heat, more frequent and intense wildfires, rising seas, and the constant threat of major earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. But here's the thing. This isn't about fear. It's about preparation. Scientists aren't issuing these warnings to scare us. They're giving us the information we need to adapt, prepare, and potentially prevent some of these disasters from becoming catastrophes. The time to act is now. Whether that's supporting renewable energy, improving disaster preparedness in your community, or simply staying informed about the risks in your area. Because while we can't prevent every natural disaster, we can choose how we respond to them. And that choice might just determine whether we thrive or merely survive in the decades ahead. The future is coming whether we're ready or not. The question is, will we be prepared?